ESPN.
This is a proud presentation of Mississippi River Radio Sports, the sports authority. It's time for the Red Hawks Culture Show. Live from Wings, etc. Hear the Culture Show each week on SEMO ESPN 1220 and also at SEMOESPN.com and the SEMO ESPN app. Also, watch the Red Hawks Culture Show webcast live at SEMOESPN.com. Now, let's go live to Wings, etc. for the Red Hawks Culture Show.
Welcome in to the Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, etc. in Cape Girardeau. We invite you to stop by and join us for lunch. If you can't stop for lunch, you can call ahead and they'll have your order waiting for you. And if you would love some of those award-winning jumbo wings on Mondays, they are just 69 cents. So an opportunity for you to take advantage of the jumbo wings from Wings, etc. If you're not in the mood for wings, they have a full menu, and that includes their freshly made burgers, their wraps, subs, quesadillas, entree salads, smoked ribs, and much more. If you'd like to check out their appetizer lineup, it includes their ultimate nachos and their deep-fried pickle spears, and their lunch specials, daily half-pound lunch specials, start at just $7.99. It's Wings, etc. Good food, great times, and we invite you to come out and join us. Plenty of seats available here, so come on by. If you haven't made plans for lunch, why not make it Wings, etc.? And for the next 2 weeks, we're going to be right here in the Cape location. So just make a note of that. We'll be in Cape Girardeau's location, but we invite you to join Wings, etc. and their Jackson location as well. We're going to have Isaiah Gable on the show in just a little bit. Isaiah just walked in, so I'm sure he's getting his menu ready to go. Let's see what he's going to have. Coach Rick Ray is here. And when you come to Wings, do you have a favorite? Is there a favorite that you usually? I guess the kids call it. Do you have a go-to?
Yeah, I'm a dry rub guy.
Okay.
So anytime I go, and I only like drums. I don't like the other wing part of it. So I always go dry rub is what I go to.
I like the. I'm a dark meat guy. So if I just get regular chicken, legs and thighs. I like legs and thighs. I like dark meat with turkey too. I mean, not that white meat is bad. You follow you've been following the coaching searches in the NFL. We just heard that Mike McCarthy is going to be the new head coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
I didn't hear that, but I heard the stipulation was the fact that Jerry Jones wanted to keep the offensive staff in tow there with the Cowboys, and that was going to be the big sticking point as far as like who he hired. And so if you hire somebody who's an offensive-minded guy like Mike McCarthy, then is that going to work? So if that was going to be the case, then we'd have to hire a guy who was defensive-minded. So it's going to be interesting to see the dynamics of the coaching staff, because I know they really like the offensive coordinator. Is it Kellen Moore, the former quarterback there? So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out there.
Now, as far as the NFL playoff games, and you're a big football guy, how closely were you kind of following what was going on this weekend?
Well, unfortunately, we were playing, and then I went off recruiting yesterday, so I didn't get a chance to see the games. And then I DVR'd a couple of them, but my boys are on vacation right now, so they're off. They went my son was born in Clemson, so they went to Clemson and watched a basketball game and got a chance to hang out with the football facilities. So I'm going to wait till they get back in order to watch those. So, but they're having a ball. I got to say this one thing. Dabo Sweeney, just an unbelievable person. I texted him and said, hey, my boy is going to be coming through there and coming back home and visiting with Clemson basketball and getting a chance to see a game. They would love to get a chance to meet you. And so he set it up, brought him into the office.
Really?
Took pictures with him, took him on a tour of the facility, let him go down the slide in the facility. They got a chance to take pictures with Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne and do all those things right there and do all the games that they have there. They have putt-putt there. They have that full basketball court. This is inside their football facility.
That's unbelievable.
They have a wiffle ball baseball diamond. They have a putt-putt course. They have a basketball court. Then they have all the video games, sleeping pods, and things like that. So my wife said that they couldn't even get through the whole facility. Said, hey, now do you want to go see the actual, football? He said, we just don't have time. We had to get over to the basketball game. But they got a chance to touch the rock and go down the hill. So it was just, they had a great experience. But for him to be preparing for the national championship game and take the time out of his schedule to do that and get a chance to meet the boys and talk to them and show them around like that, just unbelievable person.
But it also shows that, there are a lot of guys who, they've got a public persona. Are they authentic? It sure sounds like, because there's just too many people that say Dabo Swinney is authentic.
Oh, it's genuine. I mean, it is really genuine. And I was, they would be getting ready to play, when I was there, getting ready to play Florida State, which at that point in time, Clemson, Florida State was the biggest rival in the ACC. And so it's a Friday, and he's calling saying, hey, let's get this noon ball game set up. and so I'm like, man, you got Florida State, tomorrow. But that was his routine. That's how he, got rid of his stress, that he played noon ball. So he's just an unbelievable person. And what you see as far as like the public persona, and not a lot of people, but the guys in the know, there's a lot of people that have that public persona that are nothing like that, outside of that. And so he's one of those guys, like you said, are authentic and genuine as far as his approach.
Now, you mentioned Dabo Swinney focusing in on a routine. I wanted to ask you about routine, because the SEMO women's basketball team really ran into a speed bump on Saturday. Their bus driver didn't show up.
Oh, my.
So no bus, scramble, got to rent a van to get the players over there, and then the assistant coaches have to take vehicles over there. So everyone, the players travel in one thing. But I know coaches are so concerned about routines. If routines weren't important, then coaches really wouldn't be focused in on, let's not change our routine. Now, I'm not saying that's why they lost at Murray State on Saturday, but how big of a disruption is something like that for a basketball team?
Well, it's a huge disruption, and you never want to take people out of their routine because that's what they're used to, and you don't know how people react to distractions. And that's the thing, you just don't know. Hey, so there may be somebody on your team, hey, the bus driver didn't show up, and they hop in cars or they hop in vans, and it doesn't affect that person at all. But there may be a couple players on your team that play a lot of minutes that now they're really screwed up. And so trying to get them back on track is just going to be a huge problem. So it just depends on the person. And I always say, like, that director of a basketball operations job is one of the hardest jobs in America.
I agree.
Because it's not the person that's the director of basketball operations not doing their job. It's the people that they've contacted and the people they have working with them that don't do their job. I'm sure that the director of basketball operations over there talked to the people at the bus, time and time and time, and updated itinerary, double check, triple check, and do all those things. And now they show up there and that person's not there. It's not the director of basketball operations' fault per se, but it's the director of basketball operations' fault when something like that happens. And so it just depends. Like, hey, I know that you said, hey, you've talked to this food company when you're out of town and they're going to have the food there catered, ready to go at 8 o'clock. And you've talked to them 10 times. And you get there and it's 8 o'clock and the food is not there. And it's just because people don't take pride in their job as much as they used to anymore. So, I can't imagine what it would be like to be in that situation. And I didn't know that until you just actually said something. So that's a huge distraction. But I tell you, it also depends on who you work for. When I was at Indiana State and something like that would happen, it's going to be hell to pay. And it's not just going to be the director of basketball operations. It's going to be the assistant coaches. It's going to be everybody involved in the program. But there may be some guys who just shake it off and just keep moving on. So it also depends on the demeanor of that head coach. And I know when I was at Indiana State, my whole deal, I was like, when I ever become a head coach, I don't want to be that way where the assistant coaches are just on pins and needles, because you just, if any sort of mistake happens, that that there's going to be, hey, it's not going to be fun to work in the office that day. And so I know that I didn't want to be that way, and so I probably went a little bit too far the other way as far as, like, making sure our guys have an environment where they can work and feel free to do the things they need to do.
So as far as routines, and I'm sure it varies from coach to coach. I mean, are you absolutely a guy that absolutely believes in routines and that you really need it for 18 to 22-year-old athletes?
Well, I think it depends. For me, I'm not a routine guy. I don't have a nightly schedule. I don't do something like, hey, this is what I'm going to do before the game. This is what I'm going to do. There's some things that you obviously have to do in order to get ready for the game, but I don't need to do it at this particular time, or I'm going to eat the same food every single time. But some of my colleagues, hey, they know that they're going to work out 8 hours before the game. They're going to eat at this particular time. They're going to eat this same meal. This is when they're getting dressed. This is when they get showered, and that just would drive me crazy because I'm just not a routine guy like that. But it also depends on where you're at and who you're dealing with. I know some of our players, they have a routine. Some of them don't. So to me, it's all about like making sure that the guys have an understanding of what the routine is. But, hey, because of sometimes you play a game at noon, right?
Right.
If you play a game at noon and you usually eat 6 hours before you play that game, then are we really going to get our guys up at 6 a.m. to eat for noon? No. It's like now the important thing is for those guys to get some sleep, so you got to change your routine a little bit. But I know some people, hey, you play at noon, they would get their guys up at 6 a.m. to eat because they believe in the routine.
Wow. So your routine lately has been preparing to go on the road. I mean, you have played 10 of your last 11 games on the road. How much of a different routine is it going to be now because you got 4 straight home games? I mean, that's been unheard of this year for you.
Yeah, well, the one thing that just always happens when you're on the road, you can't control when your shoot-around time is, when you can get on the court, when you can practice. And when you're at home, you can control those things because it's your court. So just having that routine, what you just talked about, hey, I know that we're going to be able to get up shots on game day. I know that we're going to be able to go in and walk through at this particular time because it's our facility. So to me, those are the things that end up mattering. Sometimes you have to end up walking through in a conference room in a hotel because you just don't have the availability. Hey, you can come over and walk through, but it's going to be at 9 o'clock at night. And it's like, yeah. I don't know if I really want to get our guys out that late, 9 o'clock, doing those types of things. So when you're at home, you control that environment so you know when you can do those things that you want to do in your routine.
Okay, you talk about getting up shots. Who on your current roster gets up the most shots per day? Who do you think? Or maybe a couple of guys.
Yeah, first of all, Skylar Hogan is just, he's a guy that always is in the gym working on his game and getting shots up. He's in there all the time. And
so would you refer to him, oftentimes in basketball, you refer to people like that as gym rats. Is he a gym rat?
Yeah, I really believe he's a gym rat because he's always in there shooting. I know the custodial staff over there, they're always talking about, hey, I saw Skylar in here this morning or last night, and they'll tell you. And oftentimes when you're walking through the gym or doing something, you'll see him in there shooting. So, and I think Isaiah, not just because he's here, but I think Isaiah's a guy that gets up a ton of shots as well too. And so it's not a hard recipe to figure out. Guys that can shoot, you know what they do? They shoot.
Shooters shoot.
Yeah. And so I'll never forget a story about Ray Allen. Ray Allen had a routine when he played with the Milwaukee Bucks that he would always get to the arena 2 hours before and go through his routine with shots. And it did not matter. He had to do that. So he'd often take a cab or, they didn't have Uber and things like that back then, but he'd take a cab or something like that or have a driver take him to the arena, and he'd go through his routine of shooting every single time. Well, they were getting ready to play the New York Knicks. And so he gets there, and the dance squad, that's their so-called practice time, the 2 hours beforehand. And so he goes out there, and he's shooting, and the dance squad is, hey, this is our practice time. You need to not shoot during this time. And he says to him, are you guys playing tonight? and so he just finished his routine. But that was something he had always had to do. But he would shoot religiously all the time. People want to know how Ray Allen was such a good shooter. He shot a lot of shots.
Who's the best three-point shooter you've ever seen?
Well, it depends. Like, it's who I've seen or who I played against is all those different things. When I was an actual player, and this is a funny story, back then AAU basketball was AAU basketball. There was not all these, 3,000 teams. There was like 2 teams in your state that had a legitimate AAU team. And so in my AAU team, we had Anthony Peeler. And then we had Chris Lindsey, who went to Kansas, and so we had Javon Crudup. Those guys are really good players. And so to us, Anthony Peeler, there was, you didn't have internet. You didn't have all those different things.
Right.
Anthony Peeler was like the best player ever. So we go on the tour for AAU, and we get done, and we're playing this team. And I was like the defensive guy. I didn't start, but I played. So we go out, and this little guard goes out, and he scores 12 straight points. And Anthony Peeler just, like, can't do anything with him. So my coach, the infamous Myron Piggy, he says, Rick, go in there and guard him. And I go out there, and he gives me 3 straight threes, and I there's nothing I can do. He's dribbling so fast and things like that. So we get done with the game. The guy scores 57 points.
57.
Yeah, scored 57 points. And so we get done. This is like, I said, hey, there's this kid that we played against. I don't know who he is, but, like, he's way better than Anthony Peeler. And they was like, no way. There'd be nobody better than Anthony Peeler. And they said, well, like, who is he and where is he going? I said, he's only 6 foot. His name is Chris Jackson, and he's going to LSU. So we didn't know who that was, but obviously Chris Jackson goes on and have the best, like, freshman season of anybody in history of college basketball. So if you talking about who I played against.
Now, if for anyone who's not old school, Chris Jackson changed his name to Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, so you may recognize that name over Chris Jackson, which was his name when he was at LSU.
Yeah, and I think it's indisputable to me that he had the best freshman season of anybody ever in college basketball. I'm not talking about the guys like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar who did not get a chance to play their freshman season. I'm talking about a true freshman. Then as far as, like, in my coaching career.
Pete Maravich, could you play as a freshman back when he was?
No,
okay.
he had to sit out as well, too. So as far as, like, coaching, when I was at Purdue, we played against Steph Curry. So I would have to say him. Then also it's crazy, Marshall Henderson at Ole Miss.
Yeah, that guy.
That dude could sprint off. He was crazy now. I wouldn't want to coach him. But, that guy could sprint off screens and make shots at an unbelievable rate. So I would say –
Was there anybody that drew the ire of a fan base more than Marshall Henderson? Maybe J.J. Redick when he was at Duke. But, Marshall Henderson, that guy was constantly booed everywhere that he played.
Everywhere that he played. It was – it just – and he loved it.
He fed on it.
He relished it.
It was like what Barry Bonds he would talk about. He loves being booed because it's a sign of respect.
Yeah. So, I can't think of anybody as far as, like, in my coaching career that got that. Draymond Green, Day-Day, when he was at Michigan State, he loved, that negative reaction as well, too. But that's the only people that I could think of right off the bat.
So you see Steph Curry in college. Did you have any inkling that he was going to be what he's turned out to be?
No, not at all. And obviously he was a good player. That was his sophomore year at Davidson. But that was back then when the refs didn't call anything. You could just manhandle people. And we had the 2-time Defensive Player of the Year, Chris Kramer, at Purdue, who was this big, strong, physical guard. And really what he did was went out there and fouled him the whole game. And so he had never seen anything like that or had the physicality of that. And so he only scored maybe, 13 points in that game. But it's because, like, Chris Kramer did such a good job on him, and Matt Painter really did a great job of scheming against him. But I had no idea. He was just this thin, frail kid. Now, he could shoot it. You watch him in the warm-ups, and after it was my scout, you watch the other team, and he's going through the shooting drill, and I went through Chris Kramer. I said, hey, I just watched him take 53s, and he made 45 of them. I said, you can't let him, you just can't let him get any freedom at all because he's going to make it. If he's loose, he's going to make them.
Hey, we talk about routines. Have you ever seen video of Steph Curry's routine before a game?
Yeah, and Steph Curry has been really good for the NBA, but he's also been really bad for kids that watch him because they think that they can do the things that Steph Curry do, the deep threes, the step backs, the 2-ball handling, all those things that he does in his pregame routine. Like, kids see that, and high school guys see that, and they think, hey, I can do that. And so, even my son, the first thing he does when he goes on the basketball court, he just starts taking step-back threes. And I'm like, hey, man, let's get some form shooting or something like that before you start doing all those things. So he's obviously probably the best shooter to ever play in the NBA. But it's also been really bad because these young kids emulate him and they think that they can do the things that he can do, and it's just not possible.
You know, but also I think with young kids looking at Steph Curry, they feel maybe that they could be more of a Steph Curry than they could be a LeBron James, because you're not going to be 6'9", 270 or whatever he weighs with that kind of athleticism. I mean, they just don't make guys like that very much.
Yeah, but the truth is they don't make guys like Steph Curry either. Yeah. and that's what they don't realize. Body type-wise, you're exactly right. There's this illusion that, hey, I can be like Steph Curry because I'm not big and strong like, a LeBron James or a James Harden or something like that. But now they see that, and it's like, no, Steph Curry is special as well, too. He may not be special in regards to, like, his size and athleticism, but I would vision to think that his hand-eye coordination is probably one of the best that you ever have. He's one of those guys. What do they talk about? Stand-the-man musical, as far as like he could see the seams of the baseball and pick up things.
Ted Williams too.
Ted Williams,
great, like 20/10 eyesight.
Right, and wasn't Ted Williams a pilot as well too? And so that's why he could see things like that. So I would think, because they say, Steph Curry is a phenomenal golfer. A phenomenal golfer.
Yeah.
And so, like, think if he invested full time in the golf and how good of a golfer he could be because of his hand-eye coordination. So he has a special ability. It may not show up athletically, but it shows up in hand-eye coordination.
I wanted to ask you because, James Harden is the number one scorer in the NBA. I know you're a Michael Jordan guy. I'm a Jordan guy. I grew up in Illinois. I was a Bulls fan before Michael Jordan when they had Artis Gilmore and Reggie Theus. So James Harden, is he a better scorer than Michael Jordan?
Well, I think it's hard to say. First of all, if you look at all these advanced statistics they have, his usage rated, and they say, like, for a person to, like, take on the physical, like, demands that I am going to shoot this many times and score this many times no matter what the defense does. Just the pounding physically that your body takes. He does not care. He is going to get his shot attempts no matter what.
That's true.
And so his usage rate, as far as like him being a guy, that usage rate is so high, and him to still be somewhat efficient. Now, he has some games where he's not very efficient, but for the most part, he's a pretty efficient basketball player, and be willing to, like, get fouled as much as he does and continue to get to the free throw line. So the difference is, obviously, Michael Jordan didn't play with the emphasis of the three-point shot that they play with now. It's just a totally different game.
Sure.
And then, obviously, they didn't let you manhandle and maul you in the NBA now the way that they can now. It's like Phil Jackson's. He was dead serious. They asked him how many points a game would Michael Jordan scored in modern NBA. He said he'd average 40 easy. Because you just couldn't hand check him.
You remember those games where it was Phil Jackson's Bulls against the New York Knicks of Pat Riley?
Yeah.
They were street fights,
yes.
weren't they?
Yes, and you couldn't play that way. Now I think it's wrong, and obviously as we get older, this guy couldn't have done that back in this day. Well, LeBron James could play in any era. He's so big and strong and physical, and I would imagine that James Harden could take on the physical pounding and be able to score in any game. So for me, nostalgia-wise, I would still say Michael Jordan, because you don't know what Michael Jordan would do with these rules. I don't know how you could guard him. Now, would he be the three-point shooter that James Harden is? Maybe not, but he was still, hey, if you told Michael Jordan, hey, we need you to make threes in the offseason and work on your game, I'm pretty sure that he's going to be able to do it.
Well, I don't even make the case that Harden's a better player than Jordan.
No, score.
I'm just talking about strictly scoring, because 6 titles. And what did Jordan do in the playoffs, and what has James Harden done in the playoffs?
Well, the other thing too is, James Harden would have to attempt to play defense in order to get in the stratosphere as far as like a player of Michael Jordan. That's the thing that people don't realize is
first
you're talking
team
about
defensive team.
You're talking about
year.
a complete player. There's no comparison. Now, I do understand when people talk about purely scoring. Purely scoring, you can have an argument. But I always say you can go back then, so where does Will Chamberlain go then? I mean, if you're talking about pure, well, it was different back in that day. Well, you're comparing eras, it's hard, but the dude averaged 50.4 points per game.
Unbelievable.
You know, so how can you say that somebody was a better scorer than Wilt Chamberlain when he did those things? And I know that there was a whole bunch of different rules and who he was playing against and all. I get all that, but as far as like looking at just stats, how can you say that he's not the best scorer ever?
Yeah, and people, I don't know how they forget about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's the number one scorer in the history of the game. And when you talk about greatest players, I don't think he's one of the first guys that people talk about.
Yeah, and it's a shame because I think there's a stigma that goes with Kareem because of the goggles and the sky hook and those types of things. But I mean, it really is a shame that when you always talk about, hey, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar never gets mentioned in that whole breadth of like being the best player ever. And you talk about the breadth of his career, man, think about this. He may have been the best collegiate basketball player ever and the best NBA player ever. There's usually like one or the other, but like there's a huge argument to be made that he is in the conversation for both of those distinctions.
And, some people forget he won a championship with the Milwaukee Bucks when he was Lou Alcindor. I think people just remember him as a Laker. He had a world championship before he ever went to the Lakers.
Yeah, and you talk about the combination of things that people talk about when they talk about the greatest players. They talk about scoring, overall player, and rings. He has all those things. I mean, he has all of them, and he never gets mentioned. Magic Johnson and Kobe Bryant get mentioned over Kareem.
They do.
And it shouldn't be. That should not be the case at all.
Do you make the argument that it is strictly about championships? Because if so, Bill Russell would be the greatest player of all time. And I don't think there are many people that think Bill Russell is the greatest player.
Yeah, I think you have to – it's part of the equation. Now, it's a huge part of it, and I think when you talk about guys as far as like the skill level of LeBron James and the skill level of a Michael Jordan, then you can use the rings to separate them. But to me, like Bill Russell will never be the scorer that LeBron James or Michael Jordan was, or even the facilitator that LeBron James is. And that's why I think you can't just use the rings. I think the rings are the thing that separate the difference between LeBron James and Michael Jordan.
And if you go strictly rings, Yogi Berra won more rings than he's a Hall of Famer, but
right.
People don't think Yogi Berra is the greatest baseball player.
Well, and the other thing you talk
time.
about is when you start saying that, I would say so. Kurt Rambis is a better player than some of these other guys because he had more rings.
That's true.
You talk about Robert Horry. Robert Horry has more rings than anybody.
Big shot Bob. What's he got, like 6 or 7?
He got 7.
7.
Yeah.
7. And he played on some good teams.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your team at Murray State on Saturday. One thing I noticed, they win the game 81-59, and we knew that they would be a different team without John Morant. That's a totally different roster. I mean, guys are coming in the game, and you're checking the roster. I don't even remember this guy playing at Murray State. That's a totally different team this year than they were last year, aren't they?
Yeah, and I give Matt a ton of credit because what he's done there is they used to be all ball screen oriented. I mean, they would ball screen, and why wouldn't you when you got a talent like John Morant? But now most of their screening is off the ball, and that's different in this day and age of college basketball because everybody runs ball screens, somebody runs handoffs, but all of their screening is off the ball. And then the other thing that they've done is they've just like pounded the paint. And I, after the game, I talked to our guys and I said, hey, when was that game lost for us? And, they had a whole bunch of different answers. But, no, the game was lost in our off season. So every time that we're getting on you guys about eating and taking care of your bodies to get bigger and stronger, then when you go up and you play a team that's physically dominant, so you play in Austin Peay, you play at Murray State, and you physically can't match up against them, that's when those things come into play. And I understand, like, they're 18 to 22 years. They don't see things in the future. They're not foresight. But the bottom line is, like, physically, we didn't match up with those guys. And so what we've got to do is, like, we've got to figure out a way. When you don't match up physically, you've got to be better offensively and have skill and just be able to outscore some of those people. And so some of those teams, when you're in a situation like that, but you just go through and you just watch it. Obviously, you were there. I mean, we would trap or double the post, and then we would have an Alex Caldwell or DQ Nicholas coming over to try to get the dive, and they just still threw it to the guy, even though our guy was in the right spot, and we were just too little. Then you try to play one-on-one in there, and they just buried some of our guys in the post. So to me, the physicality really was a huge difference because you saw that come out in the paint, the points in the paint. I think they scored 58 points in the paint. That's why they shot 60% from the field, because they got the ball deep in the paint every single time.
KJ Williams, their 6'10" post player who stepped out and hit a three, was he really heavily recruited coming out of high school? Because that guy is impressive.
Yeah, well, he's actually from Mississippi, and so there was two different things going on there. First of all, there was a lot of questions about where he would make it academically and be a qualifier, so that scared some of the so-called high majors away. Then I know Mississippi State really didn't need that position at that point in time. They already had a commitment from a young man in his class that was the same position, and they had just taken a freshman the year before that didn't need that. So really the only school in play was Ole Miss. And then there were schools like a UAB. I know he was really interested in them. UAB got scared off by whether he was going to make it academically. So obviously he ends up making it academically. And that's where you have a guy that ends up being a steal for a school like Murray State, because they can afford to hang in there with a guy like that, whether it's like Mississippi State or Ole Miss. They need to go get a guy to be able to compete. But Murray State, hey, if the guy makes it, great. If he doesn't, then we'll just go out and get somebody else later on.
Is he a pro? I mean, I was impressed. I just saw him one time. I don't see him game in, game out, but he looked like a pro to me.
Yeah, I think he's the type of guy that will be in that form. It all depends on his motor. If he's a guy that's going to play hard and compete every single day, because he can make a three, that's not what he does. So then if you're a guy that can just make a three, then what are you doing to help your team and all those other, like a Montrezl Harrell with the Clippers? I mean, he's an energy guy. He doesn't have a lot of skill, but he gets a ton of rebounds, flies around. So if he's willing to be that type of a player, I think he have a chance.
So Murray State, I guess it's hard to tell because you just saw them on Saturday. They don't seem like they are as good a team this year as they were last year. Is that fair?
Well, I think that's fair to say. Anytime you lose Ja Morant, I mean, Ja Morant is going to make your team better when you talk.
But they lost a lot of guys off
yeah,
that team.
Yeah, but I just think just Ja Morant in itself is going to make your team better. So you lose Ja Morant, your team is not going to be as good. Now, can they still do some of the things that they did last season without him? Yeah, I think they could. I think they could win the OVC. I think they could win the OVC tournament and get to the NCAA tournament. But I just think there's no way you can compare a Ja Morant team with a Ja Morant not on the team.
And it's no disrespect to Austin Peay. They don't seem as good as they were last year.
Well, I tell you, Terry Taylor is –
no, he's great.
Yes. I mean, so once again, you have somebody that's a special player. When you have that guy that's a go-to guy, then it just makes them really hard to defend. So you can't say definitively, hey, they're not as good. I think the difference between what Austin Peay is this year and what they was last year and previous years is they had the other post guy that when Terry Taylor would step out and they run at high low, that you were just concerned about the other guy because he was a big, strong, physical post guy that they could run the high low with. So I don't think they have that this year. I forget the guy who was a transfer from Grambling State. They had
that
last
guy
year,
was a
Chris
man.
Ogba or something like that. I'm bad with names. But he was a guy.
He looked like a professional weightlifter.
Yes.
That guy was huge.
Yeah, so that's a guy that they had there. I don't think they have that guy this year.
All right. Terry Taylor, did anyone think he was going to be this guy coming out of high school?
Well, I tell you what, and this is a thing that's so hard. Obviously, he wanted to stay close to home. So he's from that area, and we recruited him. But it's so funny, like I went to go see him, and I went to go see him at the end of AAU because you just can't see everybody.
Sure.
And so what's unfair is when you evaluate these kids after they played in 2 sessions of AAU. So there's two back then. There was 2 10-day sessions, and so I had saw him in the second 10-day session, and it was like the 9th day of that. And so these kids have been playing basketball. And so when I saw him, he was just totally fatigued. I mean, it was like July 30th. The last day he could be out July 31st. Everybody was just shot, fatigued. So he didn't play hard, didn't compete. And so now you see him that, like, there's no way that was the case. It just showed you the fatigue of it. And then it was a recent study done that some of these kids in their AAU basketball season between the spring and the summer, they play more games than the NBA professional basketball player during that time.
Wow.
And so
it's a lot of basketball.
Well, and you wonder why some of these guys are having all these injuries because their body is still developing, especially big guys. So Greg Oden, there's no question at all that a guy like Greg Oden has been hampered by playing so much basketball, in that time frame because his body is still developing. Now, if you've got a guard who's a big, strong, physical guy that's already developed, then it probably doesn't hurt him as much. But if you're talking about guys that are still growing, they just can't play that much basketball in that short amount of time. So I think that was the case with Terry Taylor. I mean, hey, he's a hard-playing guy. He competes.
He is.
He's tough. He's physically strong. But he was just physically worn out and couldn't do it when I saw him.
We're going to talk with Isaiah Gable coming up in a couple of minutes. Tell us about recruiting Isaiah Gable, how he jumped on your radar and talking him into coming and playing at Southeast.
Well, the one thing I always want to have on my team is I want to have a so-called forward that can really shoot the basketball and is skilled. And to me, also just making sure the things that we want off the court. So I had a couple calls from some people around the area in Ohio, and they said, hey, there's this guy that's still available that you need to come take a look at. And they sent me some tape on him, and I saw him in tape, and I saw a guy that could really catch and shoot the basketball. But I'm sure he can tell the story. Isaiah actually played a lot of guard as far as bringing the ball up the court for his team too, so he was skilled in that regard. So, I really liked him. And then when you get a chance to talk to him and be around his family and meet him, I said, hey, this is a guy that you really want in your program. But the funny thing is, my friend that I worked with at Purdue, Jack Owens, had just got the job at Miami, Ohio. And so a guy had just called him at Miami, Ohio about Isaiah as well, too. And so we was fortunate enough to get him signed right before he got the job. But he had just got done looking at tape on Isaiah, and then he was making a call. By that point in time, he'd already signed with us. And he called me and said, hey, man, I was just about to go after that kid because, we wanted a skill level guy as well, too.
He was going to be a Red Hawk either way.
Exactly.
Miami or SEMO. All right, we'll talk with Isaiah Gable when we come back. Let's take a timeout. It's the Red Hawks Coaches Show. We're at Wings, Etc. in Cape on SEMO ESPN.
Wings, Etc. and Cape and Jackson beg to differ. They take their sports bar status serious. Wings, Etc. is the host of the SEMO Coaches Show every Monday from noon to 1. You can watch SEMO away games at Wings, Etc. Plus, get lunch specials and daily specials like 69-cent wings on Monday, 69-cent rib tips on Tuesday, 59-cent shrimp on Wednesday, and 69-cent boneless wings on Thursday. Plus, they've got free Wi-Fi and a full-service bar and craft beer. Wings, Etc. The definition of a sports bar.
River Radio Deals Guide with this week's River Radio Deals half-price deal of the week. We're off to STS Repair in Cape Girardeau, where they have solutions for all types of repairs on cell phones, laptops, tablets, and drones. $25 certificate for half price, $12.50. It is good toward any service offered at STS Repair. These certificates go on sale this Thursday morning, 10 a.m. online at riverradiodeals.com. That's riverradiodeals.com.
And now, your ESPN Radio Network local weather forecast.
Now, gorgeous weather will stay with us here through the first half of the week. It looks like rain back in the forecast late Thursday. Sunshine here today, 50 our high. Partly cloudy tonight, low 30. Sunny tomorrow with a high near 50. And Wednesday, abundant sunshines in the forecast. Highs in the low 50s. Rain returning Thursday. We're treated at a good Weather Channel.
You're up to date with the latest weather forecast right here on the ESPN Radio Network.
This is Mike Golick for the best in local sports talk and play-by-play. It's SEMO ESPN.
The Red Hawks Coaches Show from Wings, Etc. in Cape Girardeau. The Red Hawks getting set for a 4-game homestand, and that will start Thursday with the Belmont Bruins, and then Saturday, Tennessee State University is going to be in town, and it'll be double headers both days, Thursday and Saturday, for the Red Hawks. Isaiah Gable joins us on the Coaches Show. Is it weird to think that you're going to have 4 straight home games, man? It seems like we haven't played any games at home.
Right. I think we played like 8 straight away games, so yeah, it's going to be very nice.
Boy, how does that affect players when you guys are on the road as much as you were?
Yeah, when we're on the road, we don't get as much rest, of course. And then when we're at home, it's very comfortable. We can rest. We can go back to our, wherever we live at, just rest all day and then come to the game. When we're away, we have a lot of travel and then different meals and meetings and stuff. So it's going to be nice to play at home.
How tough is it to stay up to date on all of your schoolwork? Because, and I know the coaching staff really emphasizes that when you're on the road and study hall times and all of that, but how much of a challenge is it to stay up to date with everything when you're traveling so much?
Yeah, so the last 8 games we played away, so we had them a lot on breaks. So we played Thanksgiving break. We had that tournament out in California, so we really didn't have any school, and then we played a lot away on this Christmas break. So I didn't have a class during Christmas break, so I really haven't missed that much class.
Okay.
So, but I know in OVC play, I'll miss a few weeks here and there. So, I mean, it's not terrible. We miss a few classes. But
now explain to people where your hometown is located. You're from Greenville, Ohio.
Yeah, Greenville, Ohio. It's about 45 minutes to an hour north of Dayton. So, yeah.
How cool was it to go back home? You got to play at Youngstown State and then at Ohio State, and I know you had a bunch of family and friends come to watch the Red Hawks play.
Yeah, Youngstown, I had a few people I knew up there, and then Ohio State. Of course, everybody in Ohio is Ohio State fans, so they all wanted to come. I don't know if they wanted to see me or Ohio State play. So we had a lot of people from all over the state, family members, friends, come to that game. So it was a lot of fun.
Did the football Buckeyes get railroaded by the officials in that football game?
To be honest, I didn't even watch the game.
Okay, so you're not a big Buckeye fan then.
I'm not a huge Buckeye fan, so I watch it here and there.
All right, so who did you root for growing up?
To be honest, I didn't watch a lot of football. I mean, I watched some football.
How about basketball?
Growing up, I was a big Kentucky fan.
Okay.
Yeah, I like Calipari and all of them. So.
All right, so UK. You are a corporate communication major. Tell us what that means.
It's really just communicating in the business world. It's pretty much the same as I was last year, business administration. But it's without a lot of the math. It's more hands-on, dealing with different people and situations. So I like that a lot better. So.
Do you have a favorite class?
One of my favorite classes was probably marketing, or I had a debate class this year. It was really fun. I liked the professor, Mr. TJ, if you're listening. I enjoyed your class.
So debating,
yeah.
You're a fan of debating.
It's not so much I was a fan of debate. I just enjoyed class and the way it was set up. So.
All right, so you've always been a really good shooter, and Coach was talking about the fact that you played a lot of guard in high school. Tell us about that.
Yeah. When I was younger in high school, we already had a lot of older, better post players. So I was already forced kind of to play outside if I wanted to play a lot and start. So as a sophomore, I started on a team and went 18-5. We won our conference championship. I played the 3, the wing, because we already had a bunch of good post players. So that is kind of, I like playing out there. I like playing out on the outside, shooting threes. And so, yeah.
Well, you've always been a good three-point shooter, and it seems like your role is a little different now because of the injury bug. I mean, Darius Agnew, we don't know how long he's going to be out, but maybe you're asked to play a little bit more in the post now than you had been in the past.
Yeah, I don't think really the way I play is really not gonna change. I might play the so-called 5 sometimes. Khalil Cuffey if he comes in. But if me and Khalil are still in, we're still going to play pretty much the same. I'm going to pick and pop a lot, and then just 3-quarter on defense, and we're going to play the same way. I'm not really going to change. So, but yeah, hopefully Darius comes back soon. But yeah, we'll be all right.
Now, I may be off with this, but is there anybody stronger in the weight room than Khalil Cuffey? That guy is put together.
Khalil is very God-gifted in the way he's built. But yeah, him and Skylar Hogan and Nigel, they're up there. That's the top 3 in the weight room, just physically gifted. So.
You ever in the weight room when there are football players in there?
Oh yeah, they got some big dudes on there.
Man, I'm telling you what. So, as you were growing up in Greenville, Ohio, what was your biggest sports thrill? Either in high school or maybe you won a little league championship or something like that growing up?
Yeah, probably my sophomore year we had a really good team. We were 18-5. We won the conference championship, so that was like the most wins ever ever in Greenville, like history. So we made history that year, and so that was a really fun year, really great accomplishment for like the city and everything.
You remember the first time you dunked in a game?
I'm trying to think. Either my sophomore or junior year. AAU I had some dunks, like freshman year, but in high school I don't think it might have been my junior year. I think I had one. So
there are a lot of guys that work on their dunks.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever work on dunks, or you just give me the ball, I'm a shooter?
I used to try and dunk a lot when I was in high school and stuff, but now I don't get as many dunk attempts in college, so I practice a lot what I get in the game, which is a lot of catch and shoot, one dribble pull-ups and everything. So.
Coach was very complimentary of how hard you work and how many shots you get up. You go out there with the gun, right? And tell people what the gun is if they hear the term gun.
The gun is like, it's a shooting machine, so you shoot, and then it's like it has nets all around the rim, and it catches your rebound and it shoots it right back to you. So.
Do you prefer shooting with the gun or to physically have somebody there rebounding and tossing you the ball?
I prefer the old-fashioned physical person out there passing the rebound for me, if I can get somebody. But the gun aggravates me sometimes. When sometimes your rebound go outside the net, you got to go chase it. It's a bad pass. But I enjoy having a coach or a manager out there if they're available.
All right, speaking of coaches, is there anyone on the team that can dunk as well as Coach Keith Pickens?
Coach Pickens, I don't think so. His look the best though, because he's not 6'7", 6'8" like Sage. He's like 6'4", so all his dunks look really good. So he's probably the best dunker.
Is there anyone that sends out more videos of them dunking than Coach Pickens?
I don't know. Nigel and Sage put a lot of their dunks on social media and type, but some people don't see him. It's up there. He posts a lot of his videos. I enjoy watching his dunks.
If we set you at the top of the key and you shoot 100 threes, right now, if we went to the Show Me Center and you put up 100 threes, how many would you make?
80. 75 to 80. Right now. If we went right now. 75. 75 to 80.
Anybody on the team make more than 75?
Skylar could probably make 80 easily. Khalil, if he gets hot, he can make 95. But if he doesn't get hot, he'll make about 70.
He's seeing more playing time lately, but he's not. I'm not seeing that 3-point shot out of him.
Yeah.
And he's so good at shooting the three.
Yeah, he's been Darius is hurt. He stepped up a lot. He had a little concussion too, so he's been stepping up. He'll just get his confidence more he starts playing and everything. So he just needs one to go down. If he gets one to go down, he'll make about 5 or 6.
It's one of those things. Tell our listeners what it's like to get in that shooting zone, because I've seen you in that zone where you just feel heat check. Here it comes. I'm gonna make the shot. What's it like when you're hot like that?
Yeah. Usually starts if I hit a layup or something, get an easy 3 or something like that. If I just see one or two, then I really just try and look for my shot more. Just I don't know. It just feels easier to cut harder, to pop harder. So I just know it's going up when I catch it.
So you missed some time with a thigh contusion, but you were back against Murray State and Austin Peay. How you feeling?
I feel good. I was just a couple of days. I couldn't really go 100%, so I didn't want to go out there and hurt the team or anything. So I decided to sit that one game.
Thigh injuries are weird, aren't they? Because, like right when it happens, it's like you're dragging your leg along. It's hard to lift your leg up. It's kind of a weird injury.
Right. When it happened, I kept practicing, and then as the day went on, the next day I couldn't move it. So, yeah. But it was weird. It's fine now.
All right. Are you on social media?
I am.
Where are you?
Instagram and Twitter.
Okay. And how do we find you?
At EasyMoneyZay13.
Easy Money, what was that?
Zay, Z-A-Y.
Easy Money Zay 13?
Yes, sir.
All right, I got to ask, because oftentimes there's a story behind guys that choose number 13, because traditionally it's kind of an unlucky number.
Yeah.
We used to have a baseball player around here, and I asked him one time, why did you choose 13? That's an unlucky number. He said, I chose 13 specifically because I am unlucky for the pitcher.
Oh.
So 13, was that the number you had in high school? Did they just give you the number 13? Did you choose it? Why
No.
13?
I was 23 in high school, and then, of course, Daniel Simmons had it my freshman year. So he had it. So I couldn't get it my freshman year. So I was like, 13's the next best. It's close.
23 is chosen a lot, right? First
Yeah.
it was Jordan, and then it was LeBron. And I mean, did everyone in high school want to be 23?
Everybody in Ohio wanted to be like LeBron. So
Are you a LeBron guy?
yeah,
All
LeBron,
right.
the best.
Isaiah,
Best ever.
now once again, Easy Money Zay 13.
Yes,
All
sir.
right, we'll see if we can get you a follower too. All
Thank
right,
you.
thanks for coming by. We appreciate it,
Yes, sir.
Isaiah. Isaiah Gable, Red Hawks star, and we will talk a little bit about the Belmont Bruins with Coach Rick Ray when we come back. Belmont comes to town for a doubleheader starting on Thursday night. More with Coach Rick Ray from the Coaches Show at Wings Etc. after this on SEMO ESPN. Coach Rick Ray joining us, and we thank Isaiah Gable for joining us as well. The Belmont Bruins, coach, are coming to town, and it's interesting. The Belmont Bruins, who return a lot of good players from last year's team, lost at home to SIU Edwardsville, a team with 3 victories all season. And they've been handled pretty well this year. If you just go look at some of SIUE's scores, they go to Belmont and beat the Bruins. That is one of the biggest upsets I can remember recently in Ohio Valley Conference play. And what some people may not know, Belmont was a 25-point favorite in that game. That's one of the biggest, upsets in college basketball in the last decade in terms of point spreads. What did you think when you saw that the Cougars beat the Bruins?
Well, I think the first thing is that's just a great promotional thing for not gambling. Just use that as an example of what not to do, and this is what happens when you get into gambling. But the other part of it is it's college basketball. I mean, you're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old guys, and maybe like one of the big things happen is, hey, the guy broke up with his girlfriend. Hey, maybe a guy thought that he should have done better on his calculus test and was wrapped up into that. You just never know what's going on. And so the fluctuation that you see in college basketball is just different than anything else. I mean, you just look, they can't keep a number one team. I think Gonzaga has been number one here for the past 3 weeks, but before that,
They almost lost the other day.
they couldn't Pepperdine, right? I believe it was. They can't keep a number one team, and the reason why is just so much parity in what's going on. So the psyche and being able to reach your guys, I wish I would have majored in psychology. I wish that I was not left brain. I wish I was not, I wish I was more right brain and could had a lot more empathy and could touch guys, because that's what you need in this day and age of college basketball. You don't need hey, X's and O's, okay, go do this, go do that. You need guys as coaches that are really, really touching, their players, because you just don't know what's going on with them from a day-to-day basis about what they can and cannot handle.
What are we going to see from the Belmont Bruins? Rick Byrd, I think, shocked a lot of people by retiring. Do they run the same style of offense? We know they hit a lot of threes. I think since 1996, when they went Division I, only Duke has hit more three-pointers than Belmont University.
Yeah, well, the first thing is Coach Alexander Casey comes from the same coaching tree as Rick Byrd. So there's going to be some similarities there. Now, I think Rick Byrd is one of the best coaches to ever coach. I mean, I'm not talking about levels. He was a fantastic coach and a fantastic tactician. And as far as how he went about offensively exploiting some of the things that you were trying to do defensively. But they still are going to be a team. They're really different because when you close out to them, they want threes. Okay, but the next thing that they want is they want layups. So very rarely will you see them take any sort of a pull-up jump shot. And so for us on our closeouts, if we can get guys to take pull-up jump shots, we've won. Whether they make them or not will end up probably being immaterial, because you got them to be, hey, this is out of their comfort zone because they want layups or they want threes. But the other part of it that makes it just so hard is they do a great job of isolating the post. And their post player is probably the best post player in the OVC. And so you're going to have to figure out how can you help your guys, because you can't play them one-on-one. They've always had that guy like Evan Brad, who you just can't let them be one-on-one in the post. So I think we're going to have to change up some of the things that we do instead of always trapping the post, because, to me, that's got to be our fastball. This is what we do. But we also need a change-up pitch. And so we've got to do some different things to try to keep them off balance. And, anybody knows anything about offense is all about rhythm. And what you're trying to do defensively is just knock them out of that rhythm. So if, you're a quarterback and you can stand back in the pocket and just kind of change your shoulders and things like that and find people, you're probably going to lose. But if you got a defense that can get into that guy's face and make him change his arm angles and, hey, he didn't get a chance to step into this throw, that's what happened. So that's what we're going to have to be able to do in our post defense. We're going to have some change up.
All right, you've been a little banged up. Darius Agnew's a starter. All of a sudden he's out with a knee. You put Nigel Russell in as a starter, then he misses the game against Murray State. What's the status on Darius Agnew and Nigel Russell?
Yeah, Darius is going to be out for at least another 2 weeks because he had the meniscus surgery. And so it's gotten to the point now with those arthroscopic knee surgeries, we had some damage to his meniscus. The timetable for sure when he'll be back is a couple weeks, but we don't know that for sure. So obviously, how does he react to the rehab? How does he attack the rehab? Nigel Russell, we don't really know anything more than when he's had muscle spasms, and so he's just not able to compete and play and do anything right now. So he could be back Thursday. It could be next Thursday that he's back. It all depends on how he feels about that muscle spasm and when he feels comfortable, when he can move, because right now he really can't move. But, that's the thing that's really we're playing teams like Austin Peay and you're playing a team like Murray State that are so physical. Our biggest body guys are not available for us right now. Yeah. Darius Agnew is our biggest physical presence. Nigel Russell is our biggest wing. And then obviously you had Chris out, who's our leading scorer, but he's also another big body. And so what we have now is we have a whole bunch of thinner guys that really don't have the bodies to compete sometimes with some of the physical guys that we have in the OVC, whether that be in the post or on the perimeter.
Okay, Chris Harris, an update on him. Does it look like it's going to be a red shirt year for him?
Yeah, he's definitely going to red shirt. He's actually having surgery today as we speak.
So it's ACL surgery.
So it's not an ACL per se where it's like a strain, but there's something more behind it, but they really won't know until they get in there and get a scope. They got an idea it's ACL, but the way he was not able to respond to his rehab, there may be something beneath that. So we won't know until they actually go in there.
So Chris Harris lost for the season, but you're pretty confident that you'll get Darius Agnew back at some point.
Yeah, I say that's confident right now, but you just don't know until he comes back and how he responds to the knee. I mean, so we obviously need to have him back to get some front court depth, and the fact that he is a guy that we feel like you can throw the ball to him and he's a legitimate threat with his back to the basket. We need to get him back.
All right, it's going to be Belmont on Thursday, Tennessee State on Saturday. Coach, thanks for the time. We'll see you over at the Show Me Center.
Thank you very much.
All right, that's Coach Rick Ray. Thanks also to Isaiah Gable for joining us earlier. We will get you to the Stephen A. Smith Show coming up on ESPN Radio. Thanks to Mike Reddick and Dean Field, our engineers on site. Enjoy the rest of your Monday, everybody. So long from Wings, etc.
The home for nothing but sports. CIR Cape Girardeau.